Dear colleagues, friends, and your representatives of the Council of Europe and the European Commission, it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome you here today on this conference. We are a little bit late with the opening. We were waiting for more participants to come. And first of all, Dunia Mijatovic, who is going to speak soon, is not online yet because she's got some problems with electricity in the place she's in. And Julieta Bisiuri, the director of EIN, has just landed here, and she's going to moderate the first panel. But not to delay everything, I would just like to welcome you very warmly, and I would say a few words about the project and about the conference. My name is Maciej Nowicki, and I'm heading Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, which is an organization member of the EIN since the foundation of the network, and also currently a chair of the EIN. And we've got also together with us two other persons from the bureau of the EIN, Ramute Remezaite, who was also instrumental in putting this together, and Georgiana Gorga, and you'll see both of them and hear both of them very soon in the first panel. And I should actually end with this, but I will start with this. It's my real pleasure to thank cordially to all of you, partners of the EIN, for the work over the project about the implementation of the courts, Strasbourg courts, judgments in the free speech cases, but also to the very devoted and miracle-making team of the Secretariat of the EIN. And here we've got Vincent, Cyril, and also Joanna and Agnès, who's not working with us anymore, was instrumental in implementing this really groundbreaking project for EIN, quite innovative, to broaden not maybe the scope of our work, but the approach to the implementation, and also forging important alliances also with the media as for the impactful work to make the implementation of the freedom of speech judgments happen. I will sit down because I've got some numbers for you, and I think that they are quite impressive, so I can just mention a couple of them as for what has been achieved and done throughout the project. So, yeah, a few relevant figures and statistics. Since the project's inception, we have involved more than 30 NGOs from 18 European countries in the implementation process for cases related to the right to freedom of expression. We have also assisted our partners in providing more than 40 Rule 9 submissions to the Committee of Ministers concerning at least 31 leading judgments on freedom of expression in 14 European countries, whereas another 20 submissions are in the pipeline and will be submitted before the end of the project. Many of those submissions prompted the respondent governments to engage in really meaningful cooperation with our civil society partners by providing information on steps taken to implement those judgments, including on issues identified by NGOs. Other crucial advocacy efforts that EIN has carried out in the framework of this project were providing regular oral briefings to the Committee of Ministers delegations about the implementation of 8 free speech leading judgments in Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Hungary, Moldova, and Turkey. Noteworthy, such briefings appear to be an impactful and beneficial exercise for all parties concerned, which is reflected in a high attendance rate from the CM delegations at an amount of 44%. And in addition, EIN and its partners have been actively advocating for change at the national level by conducting various impactful activities. So those activities included public events such as conferences, roundtables, webinars, public debates in several European countries, important media work, communication activities and awareness-raising efforts, as was the case in Romania among many other country examples, and direct advocacy work including meetings with government officials and representatives of national human rights structures or civic participation in the legislative process by presenting relevant proposals to a national parliament in several European countries. And so, substantive-wise, this conference actually, marking already almost 2 years of implementation of the project, can help us identify successes and also obstacles in civil society engagement in the implementation of the leading judgments on the freedom of expression, and also a reflection about further steps to be taken and the continuation of our efforts. And we will start with good examples of a real tangible impact, and actually you can see that many kinds of reforms have been actually implemented, partly thanks to the project's implementation, including some constitutional reforms, legal amendments, but also other steps in implementation of the leading judgments. But we'll also examine the difficult jurisdictions, so to say, and we are all aware that it's not a really good time for human rights, and especially for the freedom of expression, which is crucial for public participation of the citizens, actually. So we'll also discuss about obstacles and opportunities, including those that stem from other factors that Council of Europe, like, for example, the implementation in the European Union member states of the anti-SLAPP directives. And this conference will also serve to actually find out the best practices in the implementation efforts of the civil society. We have already collected them, but what will be discussed here will be taken into account in a publication of the final report that would list those best practices and might be an important advocacy tool for all of us in our further efforts. We also want to publish and disseminate among the members national action plans, and we are thinking about concrete tools for the future. Like, for example, we can discuss about our alert system about the already pending cases or the new cases concerning the freedom of expression, and maintaining a channel of communication between or among all of us for that purpose, to be really aware of what is going to happen. And to conclude with, before conclusion, I would like to ask maybe Cyril if you know that if Dunia is with us or not.
I think we're going to go
with panel one. Okay, but I'm not finished yet, so let me finish this short introduction, and we'll go with panel one. So I would really like to thank our donors. It's very difficult to solicit funding for the implementation efforts. And we've been really happy to have a support of multiple funders, especially the Swedish Postcode Lottery, the Socrates Foundation, and the Fritt Ord Foundation were the three of the donors that were instrumental in funding this exercise. And in parallel, the financial support of Sigrid Housing Trust for the provision of the EIN small sub-grants that funded part of our collaborators' important work added significantly to the impact of the project. Once again, last but not least, I want to thank the EIN dedicated staff, Julieta, who's going to join us soon, Johanna, Vincent, and Cyril, as well as Agnes, who's not longer with us, but was also instrumental in putting all of this together. So without further delay, I think we can move forward to the first panel, and let me just welcome here cordially Ramute and Georgiana, and Christina will be with us online. Please take seats. When Julieta is going to join us, she will replace me as she was to moderate the panel. But let me remind everyone that this panel is really about the success stories. And let us start with Lithuania and the presentation of Ramute Remezaite about Makate case. And please, Ramute, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ramutere Mezaite, and I'm very happy to be here. And today I happen to be here with 3 professional hats. I think this has never happened before. And I'll explain why. My main hat, professional hat, sits with the European Human Rights Advocacy Center, where I work as a lawyer and the implementation lead. The organization based in London. I'm also very happy to be on the board of EAN together with Maciej and Georgiana and other colleagues. But on this panel, I'm also here as a Lithuanian lawyer, and I'm so happy that as a Lithuanian, I can be on a panel of successes of implementation. And although I will be the one presenting this case, all the credit that concerns the civil society contribution towards successful implementation, of course, goes to the group of Lithuanian NGOs. Unfortunately, none of them could be here with us today, which is why I'm stepping in to convey this very important message of successful implementation in the case of Maciej against Lithuania. If you can move the next slide. And so this case concerns a book for children aimed at 9 to 10 years old, and the book is aimed at promoting social inclusion of various marginalized social groups, involving Roma people, disabled people, same-sex couples, and the reason why this case came around was that the reason of restrictions imposed on this book as a result of in relation to the sort of LGBT issue, and the fact that this book was covering same-sex families and couples, and as a result, this book was suspended. The distribution of this book was suspended for a year. Back in 2014 and 15, and then after that 1 year, it was allowed to be put on for distribution with a clear label that it includes information that may have negative impact on persons under the age of 14. On the basis of the Minors Protection Act. This law specifically lists a number of grounds on which public information can be considered harmful for minors. And one of those grounds was, I quote now, contempt for family values, or if it encourages a different concept of marriage and creation of family. In this slide here, you can see, in the photo, you can see the author of this book, who herself was an activist and an openly homosexual. Unfortunately, she passed away, and she didn't see the light of the strong successful judgment and the implementation in her life. And also you can see the book, which is called Amber Heart, that is the subject of this case. And in 2023, the Grand Chamber of the Court has found a violation of Article 10 on the basis that those measures, namely the restriction on the distribution of the book, was aimed to limit children's access to information depicting same-sex relationships, and the court has found that this cannot be accepted as legitimate under the convention standards. I also added in my slide a couple of quotes that I thought are useful from the court judgment, where the court has said not only that there is no evidence that the mere mentioning of the existence of homosexuality can be negatively affect children, quite the opposite. This is what allows them to be exposed to the ideas of diversity, equality, and tolerance. Next slide. And so now I would like to speak about implementation. I will briefly explain what has been done, and then most importantly, I will also spend a few minutes to talk about what has led to these positive, successful developments. And I will mainly speak about general measures, because when it comes to individual measures, the procedure and the outcome was quite standard, that the just satisfaction was paid to the applicant, and also there have been other measures taken by the authorities to ensure that the books that were already in libraries and bookshops with this clear label would be removed. And so when it comes to the general measures, the key issue was here, or the root problem in this case, was this specific provision in the Minors Protection Act that explicitly allowed limiting access to information depicting same-sex relationships. And in every single case in Lithuania where this provision has been applied, concerned specifically information about LGBT-related issues such as social advertisement, television broadcasts seeking to promote social acceptance of sexual minorities. It's also important to mention that the LGBT cause and LGBT-related issues are one of the most sensitive human rights issues in Lithuania today. So this case has really, the judgment itself has been really significant in addressing that and in critiquing this law and the practice. Next slide. And so what we have seen already 6 months after the judgment became final was that the ministry, so what was needed basically is to remove this provision from the law. And the Ministry of Justice has filed the legislative proposal with the Parliament, suggesting to remove this provision. The Parliament, however, rejected it, and that's where generally when it comes to the promotion of LGBT causes in Lithuania, that's where the political challenge sits with the Parliament. And, but what was helpful in this case is that there was no need to adopt a new law, which would then always have to go through the Parliament, but what was needed was the removal of a specific provision from this particular law. And so what the Ministry of Justice has done, after the Parliament has rejected this proposal, then they've decided to request the Constitutional Court to review the constitutionality of the respective provision. And at the end of last year, the Constitutional Court did rule that this provision was unconstitutional, and with that, according to the Lithuanian legal system, this provision automatically loses its legal force. So one of the advantages in this case in achieving this very positive outcome was the fact that there was no need to adopt a new law, but that in the case when the Parliament has rejected this initiative, there was another domestic avenue that the authorities have successfully exhausted, which has led to this very clear positive outcome. I also added a few bits from the Constitutional Court decision just to show how strong the decision was and how much in line it was with the court's decision and the convention standards. But the court has clearly said that this concept of family is neutral in terms of gender in the Constitution, and also that the legal regulation in Lithuania that provided for the limiting making information relating to same-sex relationships public basically hinders the development of minor children. So very much in line what the European Court has said, and also what was particularly important that the Constitutional Court went further to establish the duty for the state to ensure that the comprehensive development of the child includes that kind of information in order for them to grow in a society that respects human rights and dignity, and basically as a part of the healthy development of a child. And also under the Constitution, the Parliament is prohibited from reacting legal provisions that have been declared constitutional, which basically ensures that such a provision would not be brought back to the legal system. Next slide, please. Yes, and so now I would like to speak about what has led to these very positive outcomes, knowing that LGBT issues are extremely sensitive issues in the political domain in Lithuania. What happened there that in less than 2 years the judgment was successfully implemented and the law was not there anymore. So I think the first factor was the clarity as to what the necessary what general measures were necessary in this case. It was both the European Court and the Constitutional Court, the European Court and the Committee of Ministers have clearly indicated that these violations have originated directly from this minors protection law, and so this provision needed to be removed. Secondly, I think the fact that strong authoritative messages came from two highly respected courts, both the European Court and then the Constitutional Court, which clearly must have played a big role in exerting certain political pressure or incentive on the authorities, executive authorities. I think also the nature of the measures have played a significant role. As I have said, this did not require an adoption of a new law through the parliament, and so there was this other avenue of the Constitutional Court that has allowed to remove that particular provision. And also, equally importantly, it was a combination of consistent efforts by various state and non-state actors. So the fact that the Ministry of Justice has had the favorable political leadership to take forward these measures as a result of the European Court judgment. Like I have said, the availability of the Constitutional Court as a remedy, and also a close monitoring and engagement by the civil society, by the NGOs I have mentioned at the beginning, domestically and before the CM. They have actively exhausted all the available tools to closely follow the process, both with the Committee of Ministers through submission of Rule 9s, and also with the authorities, including the Ministry of Justice, which in its political composition back then, last year, was very open to a dialogue with the civil society. And now my last slide is about the potential for wider impact of this case for the LGBT cause in Lithuania. So clearly we have this provision now removed from the laws, which prevents any individuals, including politicians, who are willing to use the, I put it in commas there, LGBT propaganda for their political discourse. They can no longer have this legal measure to go, to go after campaigns and initiatives that promote LGBT cause. So I also wanted to mention that this judgment has been disseminated among the various institutions, and other awareness-raising activities have been taken. Of course, the question is how effectively it will be taken into account by the various authorities, including those in the regions where any public discussions on LGBT matters are pretty much non-existent. It's also important to mention, and that's something that comes as a strong message from the Lithuanian civil society, is that this judgment can certainly serve as a strong basis for further strategic policy making on LGBT matters, such as, for example, in developing strategies for inclusive education as a part of state's duty to ensure comprehensive development of the child, or the development of a state human rights strategy, something that Lithuania does not have today, or even an LGBT strategy, which is quite difficult to imagine today, but a judgment like that can certainly serve as a good basis for taking on such initiatives if there is sufficient political will to do it. It's also, I think, a strong basis for the civil society LGBT community to advocate further for their causes, including in the regions, as I have said. And also it helps enhance, and that's something that I have also heard from the NGOs involved in this project, that it helps enhance trust in public institutions and growing confidence among LGBT communities, which currently is still very low. And the Baltic Pride, which takes place every year in Vilnius, in the capital of Lithuania, is a good example how this confidence in the LGBT community may be growing as a result of judgments like that. Because this year, earlier this month, it was the biggest ever Baltic Pride that has ever taken place in Lithuania. And I will end with a note to say that there are other judgments against Lithuania concerning LGBT issues, and so far this has been the only LGBT-related judgment that has been successfully implemented, and I have mentioned some of the reasons as to why. I think I'll stop here. I didn't I didn't track the time, but I hope I didn't take too much time, and yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ramuta. And also, I didn't introduce properly our panel speakers. So you've heard the AN's vice chair and also Lithuanian lawyer and senior legal consultant and implementation lead at the European Human Rights Advocacy Center, ERAC, working a lot with cases also from the Caucasus. And we'll hear also Ramuta in this capacity in the other panel. I think that the order of the proceedings would be now that I would just ask one question, still like a follow-up to what you've said, and then we'll go to another two presentations, and then we'll just also, of course, open the floor for the questions from anyone who wish to ask a question. Still, you elaborated on the reasons or the conditions for this to be a success story, but still about this very subject, zooming out a little bit from the legal reasons and this possibility of just quashing the law by the Constitutional Court, but on the political and societal level, do you think that among the reasons why this judgment and not the other judgments were actually implemented was the visibility also of the case, or maybe and how it worked in this case, and also maybe it was a little bit less sensitive among those touching upon the LGBT rights, or how do you see this?
Thank you. It's a very good question. I asked exactly the same question to the Lithuanian NGOs I consulted on before when preparing for this presentation, and I think it's a combination of a number of factors. I think certainly the visibility around this case, the fact that it has come from a grand chamber, from the court to start with, the fact that it has also been looked at by the Constitutional Court, another very authoritative judicial body in Lithuania. I think it also indicates that on a political level, Lithuania has made quite a lot of progress in having quite courageous and brave and progressive politicians who are, when in the right positions in the governance, they are willing and able to take forward the initiatives such as the Ministry of Justice has taken last year. I think the minister in particular who held the position until the elections, the most recent elections, so including last year, has been the most open to raising LGBT issues on a political public level. It has also, I think, the fact that it was quite clear what measures needed to be taken. I also have mentioned, and I will repeat again, that I think what has led to the success was also the fact that it was possible to overcome the parliamentary resistance to amending such legislation. So I think also a very close monitoring of the process by the civil society, from being involved in the litigation process with the third-party interventions and advising the legal counsels to providing Rule 9s and very closely monitoring. I think it's a combination of all of this that has led to such positive outcomes in a relatively short period of time, under 2 years. So I think it's that.
Thank you very much, Ramuta. And now let's move to Moldova. If Cristina is with us. Cristina Durnea unfortunately wasn't able to be present here in person, but she's present online, and she's a lawyer and program manager at Independent Journalism Center, ICJ, in Moldova. And Christina, are you with us here? If yes, the floor is yours. Okay, sorry for this technical issues, and let's then move to Romania, actually, and to Georgiana Gheorghe. I'm sorry for not pronouncing this really correctly. Executive Director at APADOR, Helsinki Committee of Romania, and also the member of the Bureau of the EIN. And the floor is yours, please.
Okay, great. So I hear myself. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I was supposed to talk the third in line of order because actually our story is a bit of a mixed success story, and it's more of a procedural success, which is important, but actually the battle is still not over when it comes to defamation cases. I will be looking a lot at my slides, so please forgive me. It's pretty amazing that 2 years have passed since the kickstart of this project. I was actually then in a panel presenting a clear success story about how Romania has managed to decriminalize defamation in 2006. It's a long time ago, and actually the case I'm going to be talking about, that it's actually a group of cases. The facts date back in 2007, and it has been at that time, and still is, a test for Article 10. The freedom of expression landscape has changed significantly since then. I'm going to touch a bit on the current challenges, so let's dig in. Gülfer-Predescu versus Romania, it's a very simple story of a journalist based in Constanța who in 2007 was ordered by the Romanian courts to pay approximately 14,000 euros in moral damages for having criticized the then mayor Radu Mazăre. She had to take a loan to pay this sum, which doubled by the time she finished paying. This is a case of APADOR CH, the Romanian Helsinki committee that I'm representing, and the funny story is that we had previously represented the mayor of Constanța in a similar defamation case when he used to be a journalist. Right. So 10 years after the facts of the case, we have a judgment of the European Court of Human Rights saying that the court failed in this case to distinguish between value judgments and factual statements, that they failed to properly balance competing rights. Importantly, that there was a disproportionate sanction with significant chilling effects upon journalistic expression, and also that there was an inadequate court justification for this interference. You might wonder what happened since then, because actually the Romanian government has submitted an action plan both in 2018 and 2024, claiming that this case should be closed because of the following. Basically, this is a statistics from 2022-2023. It's only a snapshots. The figure are approximately, but they are relevant for the current situation. So what happened? The claim of moral damages has significantly increased since then. We have figures ranging from 50,000 euros to 2 million euros claims in moral damages. We have 17 out of 20 cases claims rejected as unfounded, and in 3 admitted cases we have a decrease in the claimed moral damages from, for example, 150,000 euros to 600 euros. So there is a bit of a good news, and that is that courts now are more willing to dismiss disproportionate claims damage claims. So this is compared to 2015, where the awarded claims were even 70,000 euros, claims which were upheld. Fast forward from 2022 to 2023 to more recent years, 2024, 2025. Important to say that after Gülfer-Predescu, we have 9 more judgments which have confirmed similar violations. But more recently, Romania has had an explosion of SLAPP cases, which do not only include journalists, who now have claims of 3 million moral damages, but also active environmental activists and also several other journalists which have smaller claims of moral damages around 1,000 euros, but that's significant as well. So you might wonder what are we doing in terms of implementation of the Gülfer-Predescu if courts nevertheless will in the end dismiss these unfounded moral damages. I'm going to tell you shortly what we have suggested in terms of legislative changes. I'm also going to say that they have been rejected. Unfortunately, the political situation since the Gülfer-Predescu and Radu Mazăre context has changed, and not for the good, because we have, for example, the Ministry of Energy, he's no longer minister because we have a new government now, asking, I publicly call, this is the 2025 statement, I publicly call on all directors of national energy companies to seek maximum damages in court against NGOs that file in actions in bad faith. Whoever makes a mistake pays. Of course, this is a statement directed at NGOs, not journalists, but in the context when we have no cap on moral damages. Sky is the limit. You can ask millions and millions of euros in moral damages. Will they be dismissed in the end? Probably. Will it take years and years of court battles? Also quite probably, with significant effects on freedom of expression. I'm not talking about the financial and psychological burdens. I'm only choose to refer to the chilling effect on freedom of expression. So what we proposed at APA-DOR-CH in January 2024, and this is a submission we made to the Ministry of Justice, to the Superior Council of Magistracy, and of course we also made the Rule 9 submission before the Committee of Ministry, this one is in January 2024, is that despite the fact that courts have gotten more accustomed to the Article 10 standards, there still is a need for a cap of moral damages. Sky cannot be the limit. It has to be a reasonable maximum amount, which is a preventive tool, and it would be a preventive mechanism when it comes to protecting freedom of expression. What we proposed is a mixed system of compensation, which is monetary and non-pecuniary, and we only suggested a cap for defamation cases. So not everything related to moral damages, only defamation cases. This was very much in line with the Council of Europe recommendation on countering SLAPPs, strategic litigation against public participation, which explicitly calls for damage gaps to prevent abuses. Funny enough or sad enough, we didn't know that this is how the recommendation would look like, because the recommendation was adopted later in 2024. We didn't know. So it was sort of separate initiatives, but it was very much in line with what the Council of Europe recommends. Now, The Ministry of Justice and Superior Council rejected our proposal, and their argument was that judicial discretion must remain unrestricted, and that pre-established legal caps would limit judges' ability to assess appropriate compensation in each case. Which is, from our perspective, debatable, because you still need to keep a right balance between the freedom of the judge to act in each case and the freedom of the press to do its job unhindered by the chilling effects of these ridiculous claims for moral damages, which still don't have a limit. So we think that the problem is that the current system allows unlimited moral damages, that there is a lack of predictability, which remains one of the unsolved problems of the Gülfer-Predescu case. And without this legislative change, Romania remains very much vulnerable to slaps, not only journalists, but also activists, also simple citizens, organized or unorganized in association. But the good news is now that we are a big group of people being slapped. It's not only journalists, so maybe we should stick together and this. Right. So what did we do? So we have a Rule 9 submission submitted in January 2024. We have the Ministry of Justice rejection, the Superior Council of Magistracy rejecting our proposal. They have their argument to our Rule 9 submissions that things are fine, there is nothing wrong with the legal framework, and actually courts are properly applying Article 20. What we did is that we did insist that we have a problem with slaps in Romania. There is the European directive you probably all know of. We are currently, all European states, in the process of transposing this directive. And we are very much involved at APADOR in this transposition process. This is a photo of one of the roundtables we did. The Ministry of Justice is present. We are trying to have a law which not only includes the minimum standards of the directive, but also the good practice examples and better standards of the Council of Europe, and the recommendation is one of them. And basically, we did manage to have a small success in terms of extending the application of the directive to national cases, because we did a very thorough documentation of all the slap cases in Romania. There was a lot of communication around this topic. It was present in the press. We were all out there. And each case includes an example of an association, of a person, of a journalist, also under the aspect of the high moral damages claimed. So this was one of the aspects. So what we did is we used this advocacy and transposition moment of the directive, and we also sent the Committee of Ministry another Rule 9 recommendation in 2025, in January, including all these cases, saying we asked the committee not to close the Gülfer-Predescu case despite the government's argument that everything is fine, because everything is not fine. We have an increase of slap cases, and until the situation is properly documented, until the debates are over on how to make this law better, we cannot close this case. So we apparently convinced the Committee of Ministry to postpone closure of the case, and the Committee of Ministry has asked Romania to keep it informed on the process of the transposition of the directive. So our hope now is that more than one of our recommendations will be included in this draft law, and that we will be able somehow to have this preventive mechanism of capping moral damages, because it's really crucial in order to prevent, as I said, the chilling effect on freedom of expression. Yeah, I guess this is me in short. That's what I said, that it's not a success story until the end. It's only a small procedural step, which is nevertheless still significant in the crazy context that we are living. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Georgiana. Indeed, this is a procedural win and one of the largest breakthroughs as for combating this kind of limitations to the freedom of speech. Though, as you said, it's a mixed feeling probably, because there's a lot to do, and it's also quite maybe common experience in some of our countries that when there is a win, like other deep structural problems remain unaddressed. And so would you say that actually now the question is that many important issues beyond the scope of the initial case are still under debate, and they should be seen somehow in the implementation light, but it is doubtful whether authorities would also agree to this kind of approach. Is it the good way of putting the issue, I mean, at stake, or how do you see it?
The context of integrating better standards within the draft law of the anti-SLAPP law, I would say is also, I don't know, let's say it's favorable. We have a new government, a bit the political situation has changed. Part of our success story was putting together, making this big coalition made of civil society organizations, journalists, always talking to the Ministry of Justice, now involving the Romanian Ombudsman, who is clearly supporting our suggestions. And we hope that when the draft law goes into the parliament, we will be able to convince them based on this example. So this is evidence-based advocacy, of course, like all of our advocacy is. But until now, the problem was not there. The data, everybody was working in silos, suffering in silos. The data was not there. It's very important that we put it out there, that it's a public matter, and this is what we should continue doing to push for better standards. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And indeed, like these coalitions with journalists are also the case in Poland. This is a situation in which we are not kind of alone. This is about environmental defenders, human rights defenders, broadly understood activists, human rights defenders, and journalists, actually. And also in the next panel that is devoted to the SLAPPs that you set the ground for very, very well. Thank you for that. We will see other kind of approaches and also other results, so it's going to be interesting to follow up. Let me check now if Christina is with us. Do you know, Vincent or Cyril, whether we can connect now? We are trying. Okay, so let's just wait a second and then. Oh yeah, we can see Christina. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I do. What about me?
That's great. I've just introduced you, but I will do it again. Christina Durnea is a lawyer and program manager at Independent Journalism Center in Moldova. And yeah, without further ado, Christina, the floor is yours.
Well, a tough path to the online conference. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be part of this panel. Although I must admit from the outset that the implementation of the judgment in Manolena versus Moldova case has not yet reached its final destination, although it's very close. Nevertheless, it has been a long and instructive journey, and one in which the Independent Journalism Center, the organization I represent, has been closely involved. Today I will briefly outline the background. I see the double sound, it's fine. I'll briefly outline the background and impact of the judgment, the reform it has prompted, albeit partially, I must recognize that, and the role of the civil society, including our own efforts in advancing its implementation. To understand the reforms, first of all, we need to go back 2 decades to the situation at Teleradio Moldova. This is the name of our public broadcasting national broadcaster. Historically, it was a state-owned company. It held a dominant position in Moldova media landscape. It still has good popularity here. After the 2001 elections, when the Communist Party came to power, TRM fell under intense political control. Newsrooms were purged, opposition voices were blacklisted, and editorial content was tightly curated by the governing forces, particularly by the Communist Party. In 2002, the broadcaster was formally rebranded as a public one, but in practice, the change was just cosmetic one. The legal framework remained flawed and failed to guarantee a genuine independence of the public broadcaster. Many journalists were fired or were forced to resign. Among them was the applicant Larisa Manole, who together with her colleagues, journalists from Teleradio, brought the case to the ECtHR. In 2009, the court issued its landmark judgment in this case, finding a violation of Article 10. The court recognized that the Moldovan state had interfered with journalists' freedom of expression through a structurally compromised public broadcaster. The court's reasoning broke important ground. It reaffirmed that states have positive obligation to guarantee pluralism in media environments, especially when at that time TRM was a broadcaster that enjoyed almost a full monopoly. The lack of statutory safeguards allowing the government to control TRM management and editorial line was in itself a breach of the Article 10, and the court made it very clear Moldovan had to urgently reform legislation to prevent similar violations. And the reference was very simple, a set of standards, the main one being enshrined into the recommendation of the Committee of Ministers regarding the independence of public service broadcasting. The translation of the judgment into reality has taken over 15 years, a lot of time, and the path has been far from straightforward. Next slide. Okay. Sorry for that. Oops. An initial action plan was submitted in 2011 and was extremely superficial. Aside from basic dissemination of the judgment and its translation, it proposed no meaningful legal reforms or no legal reforms at all. After that, years of silence followed from the authorities. And in 2021, the IJC, the organization I work for, decided to assess the situation ourselves. Next slide. We launched very detailed legal analysis to determine whether Moldova had, in fact, complied with the obligation to implement fully this decision, and we examined factors, including the legal framework governing the activity of the national broadcaster, of the Audiovisual Council. We've analyzed the set of monitoring reports, so the content produced by the national broadcasters, our own monitoring reports, and that produced by the Council. And also we've conducted a set of interviews with the journalists working, or those who have worked at the broadcaster. Our findings were mixed. Legally, Moldova had made a very good progress with the adoption of good law on freedom of expression. The audiovisual code transposed EU standards in 2018. Censorship has been criminalized, but in practice, however, we have found a persistent tendency of the public broadcaster to slightly favor the government forces, and this was likely driven by the current funding mechanism and the potential political influence exercised indirectly while the supervision body of the public broadcaster was selected. We were preparing to publish our study when two very important and major developments occurred. First is the government submitted a revised action plan to the Committee of Ministers, claiming progress and suggesting that closure to close the case. And from my personal point of view, that plan had very solid arguments that could have been taken seriously by the Committee of Ministers, and the case could have been closed. However, a new parliamentary majority, ironically, one that with a reform and that a pro-European government rushed through the amendments to the audiovisual code and reintroduced political control mechanism over TRM and the media regulator. It happened in 2021. Simply saying, what the legislator have done in 2021 is to replicate the mechanism that existed at the moment when the violation occurred in case of Manole. Thanks to our research that we've initiated previously, we were able to intervene and to respond very, very quickly and substantively. IJC and partner NGOs engaged in coordinated civil society advocacy. We used our seat in the parliamentary consultative working group, a group which deals with the improvement of the drafts that may affect the media sector. We used that platform to raise concern. We issued public statements, we presented legal critiques and organized press conferences to explain how the new amendments contradicted the international standards, and which is not less important, how the new amendments will prolong the implementation of the judgment in case of Manole. At this point, we also turned to the international arena, and this was a very important moment. With support from the European Implementation Network, we submitted the very first Rule 9 communication to the Committee of Ministers. Thank you for that. Thank you for the support. We warned that closing supervision at that time would be premature and very harmful. And this strategy proved extremely effective, as in June 2022, the Committee of Ministers decided to not to close the Manole case. And more than this, the committee placed it under enhanced supervision, meaning a mechanism reserved for judgments that require urgent and priority follow-up. And this was a clear message to our authorities that compliance had not been achieved and that we were right. Next slide. Since then, we've kept up the pressure. We submitted comments to the updated action plan, as you see on the screen. We challenged the measures that the government cited in December 2023 as sufficient. And in March 2024, it's not 25, sorry for the mistake on the slide. Thanks to the European Implementation Network civil society briefing, we had the opportunity to present our concerns directly to permanent representations in Strasbourg ahead of the Committee of Ministers meeting in March that year. And most recently, in May 25, we've seen cautiously encouraging development. Moldova initiated a new round of amendments to the audiovisual code, this time aimed at restoring safeguards for independence that were weakened in 2021. In other words, they are trying to correct their mistake. We were lucky enough to be part of the group who designed these amendments. And the Committee of Ministers welcomed these steps and requested to be updated by September 2025 in its decision. What I can say, a very fresh update, is that currently the amendments designed to solve the situation are pending on the legislators' agenda, waiting for the vote in the first reading, hopefully tomorrow. So no, the implementation is not yet complete, but we have seen how single judgment supported by sustained pressure and strategic collaboration can potentially reshape the legal and institutional framework in a meaningful way. And the international pressure, the timing, of course, and political will also played a very important role in this story. I'm proud that the IGC was able to contribute to this, not just through research and through advocacy, but through persistence. There are a lot of years in the middle, and I'm grateful to our partners from the European Implementation Network for giving us the tools and the platforms to engage beyond our borders. I think that's all. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to discussion and to learning from your experiences. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christina. Do you hear me? Can you hear me well?
Not very clear, but yes.
Okay. So just a quick question from me, and then we'll give the floor to the people in the room. So if I understood correctly, tomorrow there will be voting on the law. And if you could reiterate, you said it, but reiterate and maybe elaborate a little bit whether this law, in your assessment, provides a full implementation of the judgment, or are there other unaddressed issues that should be still addressed? And what are the next steps for us actually to be taken together in your assessment? But anyway, Christina, just a last try. You don't hear me? No. Okay. Okay. Let's keep it. Unfortunately, then, and we'll just communicate with Christina afterwards, and also provide you with the information. I think follow up with the information about the law being actually passed or not, because it's an interesting moment. And then we still have quite a not really long time, because we started earlier. We've got around 15 minutes till coffee break. So yeah, if you've got questions to Georgiana or to Ramuta, please, you're welcome, and we can just distribute the mic. Please.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for the presentations. My name is Elena Lipatova and I work in Over the Info, which is a Russian human rights project in exile. It was very interesting to hear the stories of success, very interesting, especially from the side of Russia, where all these things seem impossible. Now, in my question, I want to address my question to Ramut. Did you face any pressure, maybe from your opponents? I mean, from people sharing views, homophobic views, or other people that were against this decision of the Constitutional Court? Did you face this pressure? Maybe some consolidated activities of these people, and if yes, what did you do to them? Maybe did you address somehow them? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure this one is working. Thank you very much for this question. So the sort of the types of situations where the specific provision was used was primarily always used, this provision that allows you to request the court to remove a certain information, public information promoting LGBT cause that is considered as harmful to minors, is normally or has been normally used and abused by sort of right-wing anti-LGBT politicians. Fortunately, we don't have many of them in Lithuania, and it's not something that operates as a sort of movement. So these cases would normally be kind of individual cases, and I think that's one of the good signs as to where Lithuania stands on these issues compared to when this case came up in 2014. So I think there's certainly been quite a lot of progress made in terms of awareness raising or sort of silencing those types of incidents, if you call it that way. For example, if you look at the Baltic Pride, which I spoke about 10 years ago, you would still have often the same politicians, crazy politicians going out to the streets with signs opposing the Baltic Pride and things like that. So this is not happening anymore. So to answer your question specifically, there hasn't been a lot of backlash there, but I think a part of that could also be the fact that it was kind of a very smooth but rather silent way of removing that provision from the law. I am sure if there was a way of going through the parliament with adopting a new law which would ensure much more public visibility to that legislative process, I am pretty sure there would have been much more of the types of resistance or opposing that you are talking about.
Are there any other questions, please?
Hi, thank you very much for the presentations. My name is Max Popovich. I'm with Article 19, which is a global free speech NGO. I have a question for Georgiana, really a short question, a clarification. Is criminal defamation, it remains decriminalized in Romania, and have there been any efforts to recriminalize defamation in Romania?
Thank you for the question. No, there have been no efforts to criminalize defamation. There certainly have been some narratives, especially after decriminalizing it in 2006. We always like to joke and say that, at least in Romania, it's no longer needed to put journalists in jail because unfortunately, from the perspective of the independence of the press, I think a lot of money from the political parties' subsidies goes into the press. Therefore, you don't need to put them in jail. Some of them, are just bought. Unfortunately, this is the sad truth. So no, there have been no efforts, but we are very much still lacking in, independence, and we have a long way to go. But that would be my short answer.
Any other questions?
Thank you. My name is Susanna Nowicki. I'm of Helsinki as well as Maciej. I also have a question regarding the decriminalization of defamation to Georgiana. So can you tell me a bit about how did it happen? Like, what was the momentum? Because this is something we struggle with today in Poland. And despite even a very clear, I will be talking about this, but despite a very clear promise from the Minister of Justice, we still see no changes in that aspect.
Thank you for this doesn't work, but I can also speak. It worked. Yeah. Thank you for the question. I guess the parliament at that time in 2006 was progressive enough, for the political context was favorable enough for them to understand that we need to align the criminal code with the Article 10 in this regard. So we need to align to the standards of ECtHR. But of course, it didn't happen overnight. We were also one of the organization pushing very hard through our advocacy efforts and representation of journalists who had been detained, and so there was a lot of strategic litigation and advocacy and public pressure before that moment when all the stars aligned for the changes to be made. But the main argument of the legislature was the alignment with the Article 10 standards. Then, of course, they just thought they can tick a box, and decriminalization is certainly very important, but some of significant problems still remain. But in short, yeah.
Are there any more questions, or are we heading towards the break? Let me see the time. I think it's 45. Yeah, but we started actually 15 minutes later, and I will not attempt at summarizing the panel. I think it's really good start for the conference, despite of the technical problems. I do apologize for them, and now let's have a coffee break and then get to the panel about the slabs. Thanks a lot. Thank you to Ramute, Georgiana, and Christina.